I mentioned DraftKings earlier and all the gambling in North Carolina. And I don't know what's up with your boy Shohei Otani, man. Part of me feels like his interpreter, and I'm gonna put that in air quotes because I don't know what the hell's going on over there. He might be in the Homeboy Hall of Fame, which I heard a different sports personality say. I will not coin that. That was not me. But Homeboy Hall of Fame sounds good. It sounds to me like there was some stuff. Forgive me for not being an A+ reporter, but it came out that $4.5 million came from Shohei's account to pay off a bookie. Then it came out, nope, it was stolen. Then it came out, nope, my interpreter took it. And we don't know what's going on exactly. Sounds to me like either I was gambling and my homeboy said I'll take the fall because you're good. I'll go sit up in jail for a little while, or his interpreter was just stealing. And when you sign a $700 million deal, I guess 4.5 can go missing every so often. I don't know. He probably doesn't look at his accounts at all. And it's easy if you're someone's interpreter and you're the only person who speaks the language English and Japanese. So they every single bit of communication they solely rely on you for. I can see how you can get got if that's what happened.
Right. Who was it? Was it Chris Carter that said, "Make sure you got a fall guy"?
Make sure you got a fall guy.
Now look, I'm gonna say, is it possible that his interpreter stole the money? Yes. I'm not gonna pretend like it's impossible. But if I'm the interpreter for the richest baseball player in the world, why am I gonna fuck that up? Because I'm gonna get a lot of money from that guy. I'm gonna get a lot of money for a long time from that guy, right? Like he ain't no 50-year-old player out here hobbling. Like he's entering his prime. He's not even there yet, if we want to be honest. So I'm not gonna pretend like it's not possible. I think this is strategy just in speculation. I feel like my man was just bored and was like, yeah, I'll bet some money. And it probably just kind of got out of hand over time, or he probably just forgot to pay it, or maybe there's miscommunication. Maybe I don't know anything about Japanese culture when it comes to this sort of thing, but maybe sports gambling isn't frowned upon by athletes over there. I have zero idea. And so maybe culturally he just thought, oh, it's not a big deal. But he doesn't know about Pete Rose, which is fine. Like, hey, if I'm a superstar Japanese baseball player, I probably don't give a crap about Pete Rose either. Like I'm too busy making whatever it is, like 750 million, whatever the number is. I think personally that the man was just spending it. And, the fact that the story changed so quickly to, oh, it was stolen. Oh, no, it was this guy. Because I feel like I go back to the idea of like, if I'm a kid and I get in trouble, my first story is like the frantic story. Yes. The lamp fell. Yes. Oh, no, the dog did it. Oh, the dog, whatever. Oh, well, the dog was in the backyard. Oh, the window was open. The wind blew it down or whatever. It's like, no. True story is probably that whatever's the most plausible story
playing
is
ball
more
in
than
the
likely.
house.
yeah, exactly. Like you're playing that ball in the house, like, and now you got to get your ass beat because you broke my lamp, right? Like, and I'm not saying that from any personal experience at all. Love your mom. But I honestly, to me, it's not that big a deal personally. Like, I really don't care if athletes are gambling on other sports or teams that they're not either playing for or playing against. That's my own personal red line. If I'm on the Angels and the Yankees and Rays are playing, I bet on Aaron Judge to hit a home run, that doesn't affect my effort, my team's performance. Right. But if I'm betting against the teams I'm playing against or the team that I'm playing for, then I got a big problem with it, right? Because that is a very messy road that baseball has gone down a long time before. The White Sox scandal in like 1909 or whatever it is, like Pete Rose was not the only one. He was just the most famous one that got caught. Like, let's be honest. It's never just one player doing it. Whatever it is.
Right.
Whether it's gambling, whether it's steroids, whether it's, drunk driving, whatever. It's never just one. It's the one that got caught or the most famous one that got caught. So it's weird. And, I think it just goes to how prevalent sports gambling has become in the last 3 years, maybe not even 3 years. I feel like in the last like 24 months, 2 years. Um, and I'm of the mindset it's your money, do whatever you want with it. Right? Like if you want to gamble, and that not just for the players, but for the fans too. But it's just become so prevalent and so overt in your face. And
Yeah.
that's what I have an issue with. Like, I don't want an 8-year-old to get 22 DraftKings ads in half a basketball game. Like, to
Right.
me, because I feel like one, there's already enough when it comes to like the alcohol, right? And again, like if you want to drink, as long as you're doing it responsibly, I don't care. It's your body. Do what you want with it. I have zero judgment if you say I want to go to a game, have a beer, or I want to go to the bar, have a beer. But adults aren't the only ones that watch sports. And
Yep.
I'm not saying you can't have a Coors Light commercial, but if I'm seeing Coors Light commercials every single commercial break, that to me is a problem. And I don't have the answer to how you regulate that, but there has to be like a tipping point to where it's like, okay, we can't have 50% of our advertisements be alcohol and the other 50% be gambling. Like these are not, these are called vices for a reason.
Yeah.
And I totally understand the money is so prevalent out there, right? Like DraftKings come to you, and I'm gonna be a hypocrite here because like if you look at my Instagram, I have a DraftKings hat on that's a Bubba Wallace hat. So like I really sound like a hypocrite right now because they sponsor him, but I'm gonna put it out there early. But we have to like push back at some point in
Yep.
terms of how much we allow this to be in our society. And like I don't want to sound like the Puritan who's like, oh, we shouldn't have any of this. Like I'm totally fine with you doing what you want with your own money, your own body, whatever, as long as you do it responsibly, of course. But the idea that like I turn on the TV, like ESPN, they have hour-long shows that are just on gambling, not on like fantasy football. That when I was growing up, that was the big thing like that came out. It was like fantasy football really blew up. Like it existed before, but it blew up. And they would have shows that were just about fantasy football. I was like, this is stupid. Like, why do I care about this? It wasn't until I got
Yep.
older. But now you've got shows that are just based around what are the odds? What's the line? And I don't know how I feel about it. Like to me, it's to a level where I'm uncomfortable with it. And that was before you hear about these players coming out. Uh, you know, Again, like we know this is happening. We've seen several football players get busted for it. Um, and I don't know what the line is, but to me, it would be your bet as long as you're not betting against, your own team or the teams you're competing against. But
Yeah.
a lot of the leagues don't do it.
It's most of the leagues, the rule is you you can't bet on the sport. So like football players, you can't bet on football, but you can bet on whatever else, and you can't bet in the facility. Something
Right.
like that. Like I think that's what most of them, that's their rule. You bring up an interesting point because the other thing that makes this gambling so crazy, the difference between when you see a DraftKings ad and when you see a Coors Light ad, if I want to go get a beer, I got to go get a beer. We all have our phones in front of us. You gotta be however old to get on DraftKings, but DraftKings didn't ID me, right? It's
No.
not like, and so you're gonna have these kids in college who are like, "Oh, my points, rebounds, assists, player prop is 24. Hey, homeboy, go ahead and bet the under because all I gotta do is tell coach I'm not feeling too good." Hint, hint, Jonte Porter. That
Mhm.
happened twice. And the first time it was crazy, but all of a sudden you notice that there's two different nights where your under hits because you left the game early, and that was the most money won than any other thing in the sport that night. You start raising red flags. But for a college kid who isn't, because we hear NIL and think all these college players are making all this money. It's
Right.
it's the it's the top of the top. But on top of that, like you get this kid who's like, man, I can make $6,000. That's a lot of money. When I was in college, $6,000 was everything. I could have I could have went 2 semesters off $6,000 and not had
Yep.
another penny come in. That's all my haircuts, all my parties, food and alcohol, and groceries. I could have done all of that in under $600. As a kid, college kid, 6,000 or 600, $6,000. As a kid, all of that was I was rich. And you got kids who come from nothing. You got and you know, people with the ignorant, well, they're getting paid, like, you know, they're getting paid in a scholarship, da, 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 but while they're at school, they don't have they're not making that money. Like that they still don't have. And
Right.
it's just so easy to tell uncle, right? Someone with you can't prove any relation, hey, just bet the under tonight because I can do that. And that's where it gets dangerous. Or on top of that, and sure, the the built-in deniability that a podcaster has, that a radio host has, that a TV show has is, oh, well, we can assume that you'll do it responsibly. And we'll say, got a gambling problem? Dial 1-800 blah 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 at the end of every DraftKings ad that everybody has.
Mm-hmm.
And there it is. But the reality of it is, like, yeah, I can go see a Jack Daniels commercial because more than likely, because I can't just go pull up my phone and I'm all of a sudden I'm drunk off Jack Daniels. And it being so available is what kind of makes it so dangerous. So
Yeah.
it's definitely it's definitely a slippery slope. And if we're not careful, it could get messy.
Yeah, I mean, it's obviously not going away, and I think it's gonna get worse before it gets better. And I don't know what the solution is. Like I said, I really don't want more government intervention in my sports, but I feel like it's gonna come to that at some point, if I'm being, completely honest with you. Um, because it's just it grew so fast that there's just no way you can't sit here and tell me, like you said, none of these players look at that stuff. Like you'll see it every week, 20 different sports personalities are like, this is my money line for the night or whatever, or oh, pair this and this. And like you can't think that these players are living in a vacuum where they don't see any of this. And like you said, if I'm, you know, the right tackle of some college team, and they're like, oh, the over under on sacks is 2.5. I might just whip on that block. Like
Yeah.
I might just let him get lit up for 3 in the first half and take my winnings and go on home. Like you said, like you could have those conversations sitting around the cafeteria table, in the dining hall. Say, all right, go ahead and put whatever you got on this. Like, I'll take care of the rest, right? I mean, who can track that? Like, it's not possible. And I don't think it's right to put the responsibility for this kind of regulation on children, because these college athletes, no matter how much money they make, no matter how athletic they are, they're still 17 to 21, 22. They're still children. Like, I understand the whole like 18 is adult, whatever, but like you and I both know, because we're not that removed from that age, mentally, you're still kind of a child, right?
Yeah.
And that's not a knock on anyone, but like I'm not gonna pretend like I had my maturity and my life figured out at 21, 22. Like if I had a do-over and I had 30-year-old me brain and 20-year-old me body, like, yeah, a lot of choices would go a lot different, right? But like all of this responsibility is now on them when they didn't sign up for all that. They signed up to be an athlete, a student athlete, right? Because that's the big thing.
Yep.
They're student athletes. That's what they agreed upon. They weren't, when they were 15 and getting recruited, none of this was a thing, right? Like it wasn't to this level, to this big. So I don't know if maybe it's banning it from college sports, maybe. I don't know. Like, because then if you're, in the NBA and you're 24, 25, like that's a horse of a different color. But like I kind of hate it. It's just kind of gross to me. And I'm not surprised by, like we said, the players that got caught for it. I guarantee you there's dozens of them in all the major sports that are out there doing the same thing, that are just going, woof, that ain't me. Like they'll take the heat off me for a while. But I hate it. I just feel like this is where the sports and business world gets really slimy and gross to me. And I'm just not a fan of it. And I recognize that there's a lot of money to be made, but let's be honest, most of that money is being made by the leagues and by the gambling companies, and they got enough money. So I ain't gonna be on their side. Like I can't be on the side of the rich and wealthy in a
No.
debate and say like I'm supporting their cause, right? Like don't sit here and tell me like, oh, I can hit on this, 28 leg parlay and be wealthy for the next, 20 years of my life. Like I'm not. It's okay. You know, like I got friends who gamble and they do, and they, you know, share their stuff. And I'm like, all right, you guys have made some money, but how much have y'all made like net overall? Ah, well, you know, maybe like plus 100, 200. I'm like,
Right.
how much you done spent? Oh,
Nothing
you
life
know,
changing.
like, no, like 2,000, 3,000. I'm like, oh, get those.
Yep.
We could
Yep.
we could make you this $100 a lot easier. It's called a high yield savings account.
Well, that's the
We
thing too. Like people basically can see this as it's a lottery ticket on my phone because I can just bet $5 and win and hope I win 5 million. Have you seen the movie The Gambler with Mark
mm-mm,
Wahlberg? So
no.
so basically, Mark Wahlberg is a teacher. Spoiler alert to anybody who plans on watching it. This is not a new movie, by the way. But Mark Wahlberg's a teacher and he's a gambler. He's got a gambling problem. So every after work, he goes and he plays in these high stakes casinos and he's running a tab up in these casinos and he owes people money. His family's rich. And his mom gives him the money that he then goes and gambles away. And now he owes his uncle money. He owes the people he owed money, all this
Right.
stuff. He's got this kid in his class who's an athlete who's supposed to get drafted. He's in with the wrong people. What are those wrong people got him doing? Hey, don't score X amount of points
Mhm.
because I got you on the under or whatever it is. Or don't let your team win by 13 or something. And so the game comes and it's like he's kicking ass and they're up and the guy's mad and then they come back. He starts selling, so he put them on the bench. They start coming back, all this stuff. And it's like that's cool when it's in a movie, but
That's
now
real
it can
life.
become the reality because there are a lot of these kids that come from these areas and they can get taken advantage of